Are you thinking about buying a house before the end of the year? Stop, hold on. This video is going to save you $100,000 in interest if you follow these steps. We're looking at trends of the housing market and the mortgage rates going on right now across America. So stay tuned, and this video might save you tens of thousands or up to $100,000 or more in interest payments over the life of your mortgage. First up is this kind of craziness right now is the market volatility of mortgage rates. Looking at this chart here, even though the Fed just dropped the interest rates because of inflation's coming down supposedly, the mortgage rates actually went up over the past couple weeks, looking at a 30-year, 15-year. This is why I think it's best to wait. So right now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but looking at this trend here, you can see that mortgage rates have actually spiked. So this is just volatility in the mortgage rates. As you can see over the last year, there are these kind of short-term spikes, but they always seem to come down a couple weeks later. Mortgage rates make a huge impact on how much you're paying every month and then how much you're going to pay over the life of the loan. So I think it's really important to try to time your house purchase. If you can wait, if you've got a great deal on your dream house, then it kind of just doesn't matter. But if you're going to try to be smart with your money and shop around and find the best interest rates, then I think right now is not the time to do that. And so like you're hearing in the news that interest rates are coming down, but mortgage rates are going up, and it kind of makes no sense. And to be honest, it kind of makes no sense to me, but mortgage rates are not the interest rates that the news is talking about when Jerome Powell with the Federal Reserve is lowering interest rates. What he's talking about is the federal funds rate, and that's the rate that banks get to borrow money. And so it's kind of this pyramid scheme, for lack of better terms, that the banks get money, get loans, and then they give out loans, and everybody has to do like 10% down or 20% down. So it's kind of this big snowball pyramid scheme printing trillions of dollars. I'm not smart enough to really understand it, but it's complicated. And right now is just not a good time with the mortgage rates, with them spiking. And what mortgage rates are actually tied to more is the 10-year bond market. And so you can see the 10-year security, and this is coming from the Federal Reserve, but you can see the same volatility with the mortgage rates, and they were coming down, and then basically here since mid-September they've been climbing again. If you look at the Treasury curve right now, if you've heard about like an inverted yield curve, it's supposed to go up. When you borrow money for short-term periods, for a month, 3 months, 6 months, they'll pay you a little bit of interest. But if you borrow the Uncle Sam money for 10 years or 20 years, they should pay you more money. Like that would make sense. So that's a normal yield curve. This is a not normal yield curve called an inverted yield curve. And this is common right before a recession, when borrowing money for 5 years, 10 years pays less interest than borrowing it for 3 months. Which, are you going to borrow money to somebody for 10 years and ask for less interest than if you borrow it to them for 3 years or 3 months? Like, that just doesn't make sense. So there's just some wonkiness going on, and I don't really understand it. I just know like the results are high mortgage rates right now. So I just don't think it's a good time to buy. If you listen to any of the Jerome Powell Federal Reserve talks, you hear about how they plan to lower rates as inflation comes down. Maybe we have a soft landing, which they've done an excellent job at doing so far, the Federal Reserve, or maybe it comes into recession. I don't know. But regardless, they're going to lower interest rates no matter what happens there. So there's a ton of predictions out there that 69% chance for whoever is making this up for the USA Today, that'll drop to 3.5 to 3.75% by the end of next year. And so I just want to show you an example of like, why does that even matter? So this is a nice family house in Minneapolis metro area where I grew up. 4-bed, 3-bath, 400 grand, pretty respectable house. So now let's just figure out like, what does this actually cost? So if we were to buy a $400,000 house here, 80 grand or 20% down, ton of money, obviously, 30-year loan. And right now the interest rates are more like 7% actually. You're taking out a loan for $320,000 with your 20% down. And you're actually paying more than the house cost in interest, $450,000 basically. Let's say mortgage rates go down to like 5.5 here. So before you were paying more than the house in interest, now you're paying just about the house in interest. So that's 330 grand. And let's say the mortgage rates might get down to 5 again, and then you're paying 300 grand in interest. So 300 grand versus $450,000. So if you wait a year, you might pay $150,000 less in interest, which also means that you can save up 150 grand to buy your next nicer house, to retire earlier, pay for your kids' college education, stuff like that. So that's why I think it's so important to hold off till you get a good interest rate here. Also, I don't think it's a good time right now because of the supply of houses, and they're actually increasing. And so I think house prices are going to come down in the next few months and in the next year. So this is housing inventory, median days on market. So if you leave your house on the market, you're more likely to do a price drop. So that's why I think it's a bad time to buy right now. So you can see that this is a super patternable cyclical chart over recent years. It's hottest in the summer, and then it's coldest in like Q1 every year. So if you wait till like January, February, March, I think you're going to get a killer deal on real estate. You're going to get better interest rates, lower house price, pay less in interest, keep more in your pocket. So 2023, it looks like the days on market peaked in January, and then January again. So right now, being November, I think you're going to be way better if you wait like 2 more months. So time is close. Here's just another source showing the Federal Reserve's probably going to cut rates here in the next few meetings. I think everyone's kind of talking about that really. A lot of states right now that are actually seeing house prices decline. So it looks like kind of all the secondary home markets. So if Texas, Florida, Arizona, Austin, Texas, I've heard is cooling off a little bit. I've got some friends down there. And it just seems like rising inventory. And so if demand is constant and supply increases, that's like economics 101. And I think house prices are going to decline here. Louisiana, which I know nothing about, and then Colorado are also seeing modest price decline. So I can say in Montana right now, the housing market's kind of steady eddy. It's not really going anywhere. And so just to go back to the numbers here, you can just save literally $100,000 or more in interest if you wait for your house price to decline like a little bit. That would be great. But even just the mortgage rate alone, if you're right now, you're paying 7%, you're just getting taken advantage of really, I think, by the banks. And I think it's just so important to pay as little as possible interest so that you can save more money and build the life of your dreams. What do you even do about it now? So, do you just sit around here, twiddle your thumbs, watch the clock? Like, that's not going to do anything. So here's the top 3 things I think you can do. First, get pre-approved. Go to your bank, fill out a loan, a mortgage application, and get pre-approved. See what house value you can actually afford at the current interest rates, and then do an example at the lower interest rates. Let's say it drops to 6% or 5.5%. See what that difference is. See what your monthly payment's going to look like. For example, here, if you at a 5% interest rate for that $400,000 house example, it's a $2,047 mortgage. But if you go to a 7% mortgage, you're jumping up $400. So can your budget afford that? That $2,400, maybe not. So maybe you need to wait till you're at a 5% mortgage, and then that extra $400 you don't have to write a check to for 30 years. Go get pre-approved. Step number 2, keep saving money. So maybe you're renting, maybe you're living in a starter home and you want to upgrade, but keep saving up for that down payment, because if you can put down 20% or more down, it's just way less stress on your budget every month, and that really adds up over time. Step number 3, shop around for the best interest rate. So go to different banks. I know when I bought my last property, I shopped around and I got different interest rates between the banks. They normally are pretty close, and they'll tell you it's the same everywhere, but you can get maybe 0.25% better, and maybe that'll add up to $10,000 or $20,000 over time. So go get pre-approved at different banks and shop them around, and try to find a local bank. If you go to the big banks, they're not going to really work with you. And then just like be ready to jump on it. Kind of the last step is know what you want and just go for it. I've had to buy both my properties the same day that they were listed because I knew exactly what I was looking for. I was ready. I was pre-approved. So just be ready, keep your eyes on the market. When you find a house that is a good deal, then just jump on it and go get that one. There's different pros and cons here. If you wait to buy a house, you might get a better deal. But on the downside, you also might not get the exact house you're looking for. So if you find your dream house, maybe it makes sense to buy it. Or maybe it makes sense to buy it at a higher interest rate right now and then do a refinance later. But on the downside is refinances can be a hassle. Pros about buying now is you get the house you want and you just can move on with your life. You can start building equity. Where if you're still renting, you're not building equity right now. Over long term, house prices do generally rise. So it's possible, even though that some states are seeing a housing decline, maybe in your local market, you're not seeing a local decline yet. So one of the downsides of waiting is maybe your market's not going to decline. But it seems like some markets are declining, but this is definitely going to be different all around the country and all around the world. So if you can hold off, wait for a killer deal, wait for a good mortgage rate, and then jump on it. Thanks all. Make sure to like and subscribe.